Welcome back to Insight Review as we look back at the defining stories of the past 7 days. To South Korea now, and the corruption scandal that continues to rock the country. President Park Geun-hye has already been impeached, and this week the de facto head of the tech giant Samsung faced his own ignominious fall from grace. Let's give you just some of the details. The heir to the Samsung empire, Lee Jae-yong, was arrested on February 17th. He stands accused of offering more than $36 million in bribes to Choi Soon-sil, a close confidant of the impeached President Park Geun-hye. It's alleged that the bribes were paid in order to win government support for the restructuring of Samsung, which would have cleared a succession path for Lee to assume control of the company. Well, joining me on today's programme, the broadcaster and economist, Yueh, and the writer and academic, Omar Salha. It's one of these stories where politics, power and big business are all interlaced, Linda, don't you think?
And it's actually, in many ways, a very typical type of scandal in South Korea. In other words, of course, the scale of this is not something we've seen before. But in terms of the chaebols, which are these big conglomerates, they've always had very close ties to the government. And for many years, it was the source of South Korea's successful industrialization and growth. But what we've seen in recent years is that the number of corruption cases, of bribes, it's actually been documented in the academic literature in terms of how people use bribes in this corporate world because of their close-knit nature. But I think a difference now is that people are much less tolerant of this kind of infringement on transparency, on democracy. And this is one of the reasons why that close relationship between Ms. Choi and President Park was one of the causes for President Park to have stood down. And now I think with Samsung in the mix, it's now showing sort of how little South Korea has actually changed over the last few decades from that very cozy network. Because I suspect we'll hear more about this case, but paying bribes to get government approval to approve a restructuring, that is not something that would be tolerated in most economies. And yet I suspect in Korea, they are now saying, no, it may have happened in the past, we don't know, but right now this is not acceptable.
It's not the way to go forwards. And of course, Samsung, while being an absolute giant, particularly a tech giant, of course, as we know, is a global brand, they have rivals.
Yes.
There are others, and no doubt their rivals, Omar, were keen to say, boy, that's a foul, you can't do that.
No, certainly. I think for Apple and for others, they probably will be looking at this story and thinking this is a late Christmas present. It's a good start to 2017. But again, I think it's very, very important for the consumer to hear this story, somewhat lose faith in the system, losing faith in the fact that we've often heard conglomerates, very close relationship in bed with governments, not only in the case of South Korea, but across the geopolitical world, when we come to understand the role of business, CEOs, conflict of interest perhaps. And again, it's part of a wider conversation we should be looking at here. Yes, this is something which shouldn't be left easy and something we should put under the bridge. It's something which is very, very important. And actually, we're looking here. We have an interim president in South Korea. I believe the actual decision will be made sometime this month with regards to the president, whether they'll be impeached, full stop. And also with regards to Samsung in terms of its PR image as well, this is something else to consider. So it's a hefty effect on the company, on the nation as well. They're already embroiled in other situations locally as well. But again, I think the wider topic here is to understand the complexities and the relationship, which often we don't really talk about, but it's evident in today's world.
OK, let's go from one transnational company to another now. And the boss of Uber learned the hard way to watch his words when riding in one of his firm's cars, especially when the driver has a dash cam fitted. André Pierre Duplessis explains.
CEOs are often safely locked up in skyscrapers, protected from customers' protests and employee disagreements. Which is why seeing the billionaire Uber CEO use the company's high-end service is highly uncommon. In a dashcam video obtained by Bloomberg News, Travis Kalanick talks frankly about his company.
My year is coming up, maybe 40.
They sure every year
It's Christmas, Saturday, by the way.
The driver then challenges Kalanick about the issues around driver pay.
You know what? What? some people don't like to take responsibility for
I
their
check your
They
up,
blame everything
But
in
why
their
you
life on
sending
somebody
an email
else.
for town card?
Good luck.
Linda and Omar are with me. Omar, do you think this is one of the things of growing quite so fast? I mean, the stellar growth of Uber is just an extraordinary tale, isn't it?
No, it is. And I think we should be mindful. I think it was a month and a half ago where the CEO of Uber, Kalvanik, was actually invited and was part of the Economic Advisory Committee for Trump. Yeah. And based on that, actually, there's a massive backlash with regards to the immigration ban, the Muslim ban as well. Over 200,000 people who used to use Uber deleted their app.
Yeah,
and
it became a thing, didn't it? Sort of no Uber. And
it did, yeah. And there was a hashtag on Twitter, and many people actually followed suit. And you had their competitor Lyft, who actually were paying and actually donated $1 million to ACLU, so the American Civil Liberties Union, who were actually fighting the ban. So that was a big hit for Uber.
So one misstep, Linda, it's extraordinary, isn't it? These companies grow very quickly, and of course they're still fine right now. But you know, negative news can grow quickly too.
It can, especially if it's pointing to problems in its culture. So it may not just be judgment. Obviously, Uber's boss stepped down from President Trump's advisory council because of the huge backlash against their position on the immigration ban that was, highly problematic. But if you look at the reports of sexual harassment, of sexism, he sat down with his female employees to try and say the company's culture will change. Ultimately, a company that has grown that fast has done it by exploiting a niche. But to keep growing, as you suggest, they need to have the most valuable asset, which are their employees, feel the culture is right. And that's why
human resources are what matters, aren't they?
Yeah, for every company. And so that's why I'm not surprised that the Uber boss has now said, I need leadership help. It seems to me he really does.
Yeah, certainly after a night out like that.
Yes.
Well, now from a ride to an Uber to a ride to the moon. And back. Yes, you heard that right. A private US company is promising to make an out-of-this-world holiday a reality for 2 lucky space tourists sometime next year. Well, I don't have the money, so I'm completely out the loop. But if you had the money, would you go, Linda?
I think SpaceX is an impressive program, but I think for me personally, all of the motion sickness and all of that, I might just be content to watch it from here.
Okay.
But Elon Musk,
Well, you wouldn't pay all that money, get on the flight, and then be motion sick.
Exactly. That was the first thing I thought of. So maybe I'm not a good example of the people who would be interested.
Okay.
But the idea that he could actually take people into space and circle the moon, and actually Elon Musk has this aim to put people on Mars.
He does,
and I think
yeah.
the money he's putting into space exploration is to be lauded. And actually, this is an example of a tech company where the boss has actually diversified quite a lot and just done what I think a lot of the best tech companies do, which is to set out a vision of where they could change your lives. Now, obviously, I'm not suggesting that SpaceX, and there's not problems in terms of the program. But I just think the idea that he would invest in spacecrafts, I think taps into something a lot of us have become very curious about, which is,
You're
life
smiling.
elsewhere.
I think you want to go.
Yeah, I think he's going to
Martin,
go.
You're gonna put your name down?
That leaves me and you, so I think let's go for it. I don't have the money, certainly not. It's from what I heard last time, it's $250,000 for the consumer project, which the Virgin Galactic is actually promoting now with the help of Elon. I think it's a passion. People are passionate at heart, would love to experience something like this, and to look down at Earth from space would be
It just would be surely, wouldn't it?
It would.
Okay.
You would have to
Thanks,
take up
guys.
that chance.
Well, from little old Earth, here we are. Linda Yueh and Omar Salha, thank you both very much
Thank you.
indeed.
Thank you.
And that's it from me for now. I'm Martin Stanford. That was Insight Review.